Well, that gives us a subject to talk about with our panel, doesn't it? On the right, from our Florida Newsmax newsroom, Javier Manjarres, the managing editor of the Shark Tank political blog. On the left, Rabin-Havt, the host of The Agenda on Sirius XM Radio and a former aide to outgoing Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Javier, did Newt have it right? Is this going to be a wide open GOP race?
Well, I think he's right in the sense that there'll be a lot of people in the race, but I think if Jeb Bush gets in, he immediately becomes the favorite for the establishment Republicans, and people are going to look to him to be the candidate. But again, you're going to have a lot of people like Ted Cruz, perhaps Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, that are going to give him a run. But I kind of agree with him, I guess.
Well, he also went on to say Jeb Bush would not be a front runner. Yet you take a look, and we just saw the page of our parent website, Newsmax.com, about the release of 250,000 emails during his time as governor. Ari, you couple the release of those emails with a report that appeared in various sectors of the business press saying that Jeb Bush is chairman of an offshore investment fund. Does suddenly Jeb Bush have a Mitt Romney problem, Ari?
Well, we'll see what Jeb Bush's problems are. And before we get to him having a Mitt Romney problem, I think he's got to get through a Republican primary where, look, I think he has name recognition and obviously endorsements from two previous presidents. And I would hope he has the endorsement of those two previous presidents. But I think you do have a huge field that you have to remember, at least on the Democratic side, our front-running candidates have lost the last few elections when we've had an open primary.
Well, that's interesting when you take a look back the long run of history. Perhaps that is true, but I'm just kind of curious as to what happens here. Javier, there were reports that Jeb Bush actually sought out John McCain for advice on how to win in spite of conservatives. Now, that may have won a nomination for John McCain, but it did not win the presidency. Are Republicans in danger of falling into that same pattern of thinking, having a lot of conservatives, having one moderate emerge, winning the nomination, and then having a tough time when it comes to the general election?
Right. Well, one potential presidential candidate for the Republicans is Ted Cruz, and he said it himself. The campaign that John McCain ran, Bob Dole ran, and the one that Mitt Romney ran, they failed. They didn't work. So if he's looking for advice from John McCain, I think his campaign, you can say, I'll say it could be doomed from the beginning. But again, you're going to have these establishment types that always fall into the, hey, we want to beat Democrats at all costs. So if Jeb Bush is the heir apparent, or he seems like he's the most candidate who has the best chance of beating a Democrat, they're going to get behind him. And we saw this happen with McCain, and we saw this happen with Romney, and guess what? They both lost.
About a minute and a half remains. It's interesting. Our New York Times columnist David Brooke says this new spending bill is actually a loss for the Democrats. Let's take a listen to what he had to say, and I'd like to get your reaction on the backside.
And for Elizabeth Warren, this issue on the derivatives, it gets her juices flowing. That's like a core issue. And for a lot of Democrats, that is a core issue. I think for a lot of other Democrats, it's just not a core issue. They might agree with it nominally, but they're just not passionately involved. And that's why I leap ahead to the primary season. And that's why Elizabeth Warren owes it to us to run.
Well, we kind of got a sneak preview of what we want to talk about next segment. There was another comment about the Democrats actually losing ground on this spending situation. Ari, is it a wash in this, or did the Democrats lose in this spending fight? 45 seconds.
I've been thinking about this bill and who won. And what's interesting to me, JD, is we finally have a situation that people like the no labels guys, the kind of bipartisan fetishist love. You have Republicans and Democrats working together to craft a bill, right, and get things moving in Washington, get things done. So the question is, who won? And the only people that seemed to win from that bill were the K Street lobbyists pushing their goodies, be it the financial reform legislation, be it a whole number of other goodies that were in there, and well, they were the only people who seemed to win.
You may have agreement from both of us here. We got to take a break. Back with more with you, gents, in just a minute.